Did you know up to 95% of dieters who use methods like counting calories regain everything they lose within 5 years? But if that's true, how do people like me successfully track calories to lose 50 pounds while easily keeping the weight off year after year after year? The truth is, I only found success with tracking calories once I quit making the big mistakes most dieters make. Since I want you to experience the same diet freedom, in this video, I'll show you the 4 big mistakes most dieters make while counting calories to lose weight. But how can you make this method work when nearly everyone else fails? As someone who began struggling with calories over 30 years ago, I could have saved myself decades of frustration if I never made this first mistake. But back then, no one really understood why weight loss is so difficult when you only focus on calories. Let's use this cup to show what happens when your sole focus is counting calories for weight loss. When we fill the cup with water, that's your body filling up on energy throughout the day, or what we call calories. Whenever we fill to this red line, that's just enough calories to maintain your current weight. When we only fill the cup 80% to the red line, that signifies a moderate calorie deficit, which is appropriate for weight loss. Anything over the red line is a calorie surplus, meaning you're eating too much to maintain your current weight. Whenever you make this first mistake, where you focus solely on eating low-calorie foods to remain in a calorie deficit, here's what happens for most people. You start your day with something like a granola bar and a banana, because both of those foods seem healthy enough. And look, that's only 238 calories to start the day. About an hour later, the smell of pancakes ruminates from the break room, and you're already hungry anyway, so you give in and grab a short stack. But since you're keeping calories low, you skip the butter and syrup, which fills your energy tank a little more. Even though you're ravenously hungry by lunch, you opt for a plain grilled chicken sandwich with a side salad, only dipping your fork into the dressing since you don't want to overdo calories. Then the 3 p.m. slump hits. Even though you've been good about keeping calories low so far, there's no way you'll make it until dinner without gnawing off your hand. So you grab a vending machine snack. By the time dinner rolls around, you check in and realize you don't have a lot of calories left for the day. Even though you do your best to make a low-calorie dinner, you still overeat while feeling shaky and irritable less than an hour later. It's not long before you find yourself in the kitchen binging on everything you can shove into your mouth. While this leads to overwhelming guilt and shame for most dieters, too many of us vow to be even stricter the next day. But even if you're able to dig in your heels and stick to a low-calorie plan for just a day or two, just focusing on calories always leads you back to the same place. It wasn't until I learned that even though it is 100% necessary to eat in a moderate calorie deficit to lose weight, that I'd never stick to that deficit if I didn't also pay attention to the macros in the food I was eating. Whenever you start your day with carbs served with a side of carbs, this spikes and crashes your insulin, leading to hunger an hour later. So even though you're controlling calories whenever you skip extras like butter and syrup, you're not giving your body the protein it needs to feel satisfied whenever you focus on foods you believe are healthy just because the food industry says so. If you instead start your day with at least 30 grams of protein and you continue basing meals and snacks around protein throughout the day, that's when it's easy to stick to a moderate calorie deficit. Healthy fats are important too, just don't go overboard since fat calories add up quickly and you still need to be in a calorie deficit to trigger fat loss. When you focus on balancing macros in a moderate calorie deficit, you'll feel more satisfied on less calories, helping you avoid the late night binges and ravenous hunger that leads to overeating. But even after some dieters learn this crucial lesson, many still find themselves waking up to a goose egg on the scale once weigh-in day rolls around. Even though many dieters throw their hands in the air proclaiming, "I knew counting calories was dumb," your lack of results comes down to what my techie husband calls EUE, or end user error. Let's go back to our cup that shows your moderate calorie deficit for consistent weight loss. Once you're back on the wagon, you head straight to this macro calculator to figure out how much to eat while losing about a pound per week, which seems slow to many dieters who are used to rushing the process. But before you stop to join them, take a moment to think about where 90% of those dieters are now. Yeah, that's what I thought. So you enter your gender, your height and weight, everything it asks for before coming across the activity level section. Even though you've been mostly sedentary the last few months, a new diet means a new you. So you'll definitely hit the gym at least 7 to 10 hours each week. After all, that's only an hour per day, and who doesn't work out at least that much while trying to lose weight? So you stick to the moderate deficit you calculated, demonstrated here as filling to 80% of the red line. And you faithfully stick to this number day after day, week after week. But a full month in, you don't understand why your scale hasn't moved an ounce, causing you to once again throw your hands up in the air while siding with those who preach the stupidity of counting calories. But why do so many people swear by this method, even though you got 0 results after faithfully sticking to your plan? To answer this question, let's go back to the EUE too many dieters make that leads to 0 results. Even though you hit your calorie target week after week, and after learning about the importance of protein, you stay close to that target as well, life got busy. So while you showed up to the gym every day that first week, by week 2, you only made it 3 times, and your activity level continued to plummet as each week passed. So even though you were eating in what you thought was a calorie deficit, look at what happens when someone who's very active falls back into a sedentary routine. And this doesn't even tell the whole story. Because whenever you purposely eat in a calorie deficit to lose weight, it turns out that your body doesn't want to get rid of the excess fat as much as you do. This leads you to naturally move less throughout the day in order to conserve fat in case of a famine. While you may not notice that you're blinking less, you're not fidgeting quite as often, or you're even waiting longer than you should to use the bathroom, your metabolism definitely notices, since small movements like this add up throughout the day to form your daily neat calories burn. In case you don't think that's a big deal, check out this chart that shows up to 30% of your daily calories burn comes from neat movement. Since you're only eating in a 20% deficit, hopefully you can see how the math is mathing here. Not only do you need to go back and adjust your macros based on the level of activity that you actually stick to, but you also have to realize that your body will fight your fat loss efforts every step of the way, which makes purposely moving more an important part of your overall strategy. But even if you set a timer to move every hour on the hour, none of that extra movement will even make a dent if you're still making this next calorie counting mistake. Let's say you do everything necessary to set your fat loss plan up, like calculating macros and putting together a movement strategy that helps you work up to 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day. Day 1 rolls around and you're able to hit your macro targets perfectly, plus your new commitment to movement isn't too shabby either. Then comes day 2. Since you've watched past videos where I recommend eating the same meals you enjoy on repeat for breakfast and lunch, you easily hit your macros on day 2. Since it's easier to stay on track when you stick to the same breakfast and lunch, you throw together a protein shake every day for breakfast while slapping together a turkey sandwich and Greek yogurt most days for lunch. Since your plan also has room for snacks, you grab a midday apple with some nut butter to hold you over until dinner, which you keep high in protein since you've learned that's the best way to lose fat. But once weigh-in day hits, it really hits because that jerk of a scale still hasn't moved. But if you're doing everything right, why is your progress stalling? Let's go back to our cup of water to demonstrate what went wrong. After calculating your macros, you determined that you should eat 1,800 calories with 150 grams of protein each day to lose around a pound per week. So on day 1, you put together a simple meal plan that helps you hit those macros. And even though you ate the same meals the next day, you decided eyeballing portion sizes would be good enough. Since what kind of diet-obsessed weirdo measures every bite she takes? But not being some kind of diet-obsessed weirdo is a big mistake too many dieters make. Because a heavy pour of MCT oil can easily start your day with an extra 70 to 100 calories. And slapping on extra mayo instead of measuring just enough to get a taste without overdoing it can add another 150 calories to lunch. Whenever you eyeball high-fat foods like nut butters, it's not hard to eat an extra 1 to 200 calories without noticing. And when you just scoop your high-protein dinner straight from the pan, it's easy to jump from 400 calories with 35 grams of protein to 800 calories with 70 grams. Sure, you're getting more protein, which is great, but that meal alone almost completely wipes out your moderate deficit. Add in the extra fat calories from breakfast and lunch and with your snack, and you have completely blown your calorie budget for the day by a lot. So even though you think you're sticking to your plan, if you're not measuring most of the foods you eat, this diet-obsessed weirdo is willing to bet that you're eating way more than you think. But even if you quit eyeballing and start measuring, there's still another mistake most dieters make that completely destroys the results. And when I say most dieters, I include myself, since this is a mistake that I made for decades, which led to 30 years of quick weight loss, followed by even faster weight regain. Let's go back to our energy cup to demonstrate what happens to the 95% of dieters who never make it to their goal. Whenever you start a new diet, most people go above and beyond when it comes to sticking to the rules those first few weeks. But after the first week, you're disappointed that you only lost 2 pounds, even though you were good all week. By week 2, the hits the fan because that jerk has the audacity to tell you that you gained a pound. And week 3 isn't much better, since even though you did lose a pound, that still only evens you out to your week 1 results. When you cry to your friend who's following the latest fad diet, she can't empathize because she's already down 10 pounds in only 3 weeks. And the only thing she has to count is carbs, which gets your little diet brain racing. Because wouldn't your life be so much easier if you could cut out all of this calorie counting nonsense and only count carbs instead? So you throw out everything you've been doing and stock up on low carb foods. But even though the latest fad diet seems like the easiest way to get results, why do both you and your friend find yourself starting from scratch just a few months later? Whenever you follow a diet where you take drastic measures like cutting out an entire food group, losing a lot of weight those first few weeks has nothing to do with fat loss. Whenever you lose a large amount in a short amount of time, that's mostly water weight, which comes right back the second you eat a carb. And if you continue with these fads instead of putting in the work that's actually effective for long-term fat loss, then you'll also start losing muscle, which is the fastest route to regaining everything you lost. Since most fad diets are nearly impossible to stick to for a few months, let alone having to follow the plan for the rest of your life if you want to keep the weight off, jumping from a plan where your results may have seemed slow, but still are consistent enough to add up over time, is the biggest mistake too many dieters make. You have to understand that fat loss is a really slow process. Aiming to speed it up with some diet that promises big results is only slowing yourself down, since it won't be long before you give up and find yourself starting from scratch. But once you realize that making small tweaks to your current routine is the best way to get results that last forever, since simple habit changes is the best way to build a plan that lasts forever, then you'll never go near another fad diet again. If you want to learn the simple tweaks I made to escape fad diets forever, watch this video next. I show you the exact routine I followed to lose 50 pounds in my 40s. Funny enough, it's the same simple routine I still follow 3 years later, easily maintain a healthy weight.